Hello. It is a week into October and I am just now getting to the September totals for produce. It's the 7th today. You probably won't see this till tomorrow, the 8th, but I'm here reporting on September's produce totals. So September is the biggest month so far, which isn't a surprise. However, I think October may beat it, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But here's what I harvested in September. So right off the bat, in early September gets a big boost because of an apple harvest. So I do have 2 apple trees, and one is an earlier variety and one's a later variety. And I missed the entire harvest and only got a really small bit of the harvest for the early ones. And so that would have shown up in August, or actually maybe even July. But I missed it, and a lot of the apples were overripe, and I couldn't, they just had to go to my chickens. So those don't get added into the produce. Only the things that make it into the house and that we don't immediately eat make it onto these totals. So I harvested 75 pounds of apples off of my pretty small apple tree. So that was the entire harvest. So, it's a small tree, but you can still get 75 pounds of apples off of a tree. And we've made applesauce and canned pie filling. I'm going to keep doing that. One nice thing about apples is that you can harvest them, put them in a cool, dark place, and they'll keep for a while until you're ready to process them. I don't like to wait too long because I do like to work with farm apples. So I do try to get it done still this month. As usual, I'm not going to go through literally everything I harvested, but I'll give you the total at the end. Just some of the highlights, some of the big numbers. Cucumbers, 15.5 pounds. You guys. I'll just, I'm going to say it every time. These white martini cucumbers are something else. I've never had cucumbers this late before unless I started a second succession. And I didn't. These were the same, there were 2 successions, but they were only a couple of weeks apart, and they just kept producing through the entire season. Just amazing. I will always grow them from now on. Again, if you don't know, they're white martinis, and they're from Territorial Seeds. So the next thing was eggplant. I harvested 3.5 pounds, and yes, it did get turned into baba ganoush. I don't do anything else with it, but I will happily turn 3.5 pounds of eggplant into baba ganoush. And I did. So patty pan, 35, just over 35 pounds of patty pan squash. It's a lot of squash. There's still a lot of squash in my house waiting for me to process it. It's the same. It will keep for a while once it's off the vine if you store it in a cool, dry place. I chop them and freeze them. I actually give away a lot of patty pan. It's probably the thing I give away most of. Peppers, 11 3/4 pounds, almost 12 pounds of peppers. I have never felt like I was being overwhelmed by peppers, but I feel like I'm being overwhelmed by peppers this year. I'm going to throw a picture of just the peppers that are sitting on my counter in right here. Okay, so it's a lot of peppers, and I already have many bags of frozen peppers in my freezer. I would not be surprised at all if I do make it until next pepper season. That's how many we have managed to grow this year. 28 plants of sweet peppers, and that is plenty. I probably could go down a little bit even. We'll see. I'll make that consideration when I run out of peppers. We love sweet peppers. We eat them a lot. We use them as much as we use onions probably. So we'll see. We'll see if I actually manage to grow enough peppers to get us through until I'm harvesting peppers next year. Potatoes. Our second potato harvest was kind of small, which isn't a surprise. It was the second potato harvest, and I only grew 8 plants. So it was just over 5 pounds, which is great. That's a couple of meals. And we weren't out of potatoes yet from our first harvest. I think I used the last of them this week. I may have one more small bag of the June harvest, and then I'll have these 5 pounds, and then sadly I'll have to go back to buying potatoes again. We grew potatoes in a really small area, and the fact that we can get even 5 months of potatoes out of a 4 by 8 foot bed is pretty amazing. Tomatoes. September is the second big month for tomatoes, and it was 86 pounds. 86 pounds of tomatoes. It's a lot of tomatoes. And we're not done yet. There's still tomatoes all over my kitchen, and I haven't pulled the green tomatoes yet. I won't pull them until later this month. And I'll talk about what I do with green tomatoes in a different video. But there's a lot of green tomatoes still on my plants. I don't pull my plants until right before the first frost. I do some maintenance on them, and you'll see that in the next garden tour, which hopefully will be this week. But yeah, still a lot of tomatoes coming in September, and still quite a few in October as well. The yard-long cucumbers are still producing great. They are getting a little bit smaller, which is fine. They still taste delicious. 9 pounds of yard-long cucumbers. We are never out of cucumbers. And zucchini. Zucchini is 28 pounds, a little over 28 pounds of zucchini that I harvested in September. So the totals for everything, including the things that I didn't share, there's a lot of things that are just a couple of ounces or a couple of pounds. Some of those things are like watermelon, tomatillas, basil, which I actually do weigh when I harvest in large quantities to dry. Our black beans, so that was 3 pounds added in there. Noodle beans, those are just some of the other things that's just a smaller amount. And so I don't need to go through every little thing that I harvest, but I do keep track so that I can have a total. So the total number of pounds for September is 285.9 pounds, so almost 286 pounds. That is the highest number of pounds I've harvested in a month yet this year. That partially is because I lost my plum harvest and I lost my first apple harvest, which would have increased the numbers for July and August. And we still have, so October may be smaller, but we have pumpkins and winter squash, which is going to be a big number to harvest, plus green tomatoes. So those will all end up in October. I think the winter squash may not end up until November. So we'll see where that goes. The vines just started dying down, and you harvest them when the vines are pretty much dead. So we'll see how that goes. I also still have a lot of peppers and ripe tomatoes coming in. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if October is going to have more pounds because of the winter squash. A lot of things I've pulled out. My beans, I pulled my potatoes, and beds are I'm starting to put them to bed for the winter. I have planted a winter garden, but I just don't plant my entire garden for winter. It's too much. It would be too much of those things to grow. So you can only eat so much spinach and cabbage. Anyway, that's what I grew in September. It's what I harvested in September. And I hope that is interesting to you, and I will talk to you next time.